Hello, and welcome to an information session on the recently released OJJDP Fiscal Year 2025 Youth Gang Prevention and Intervention Program Notice of Funding Opportunity. My name is Jim Antel, and I am a Senior Advisor at OJJDP. So during this session, we will cover the following topics. We'll provide an overview of OJP, an OJJDP overview, a program overview, provide information on the Notice of Funding Opportunity, an OJP funding process overview, and we'll go over some application resources. So let's start with what is the Office of Justice Programs, or OJP? OJP provides grant funding, training, research, and statistics to the criminal justice community. OJP is one of 3 grant-making components of the Department of Justice, along with the Office on Violence Against Women and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. OJP includes the following 6 program offices: the Bureau of Justice Assistance, the Bureau of Justice Statistics, the National Institute of Justice, the Office for Victims of Crime, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, and the SMART Office, or the Office of Sex Offender Sentencing, Monitoring, Apprehending, Registering, and Tracking. So how does OJJDP support the field? We provide national leadership, coordination, and resources to prevent and respond to youth delinquency and victimization. The office helps states, localities, and tribes develop effective juvenile justice systems that create safer communities and empower youth to lead productive lives. So today, we're going to cover the Youth Gang Prevention and Intervention Program. This NOFO supports the implementation of intervention and suppression strategies to reduce youth gang violence and promote public safety. These strategies will help communities to prevent youth from joining gangs, discontinue youth involvement in gangs, and prevent and reduce additional youth gang violence. This NOFO has 2 categories of funding. So Category 1, or intervention, will support intervention strategies that can prevent youth from joining gangs and help them discontinue their involvement in gangs. These may include law enforcement outreach and engagement targeting active gang members and close associates, and youth at risk for gang involvement and their families. Category 2, or suppression, will support focused deterrence and suppression strategies aimed at preventing and reducing youth gang violence. Applicant organizations are encouraged to develop and implement a variety of suppression strategies. These may include law enforcement partnerships with community organizations to hold youth accountable and targeted enforcement efforts focused on immediate threats and in the areas of the community that are most heavily affected by gang-related crime. Here are the goals and objectives of this NOFO. The goal is to prevent and reduce youth gang involvement and youth gang violence. The first objective, which applies to Category 1, is to implement intervention strategies that prevent youth from joining gangs and help them discontinue their involvement with gangs and violence. Objective 2 is specific to Category 2, and it is to implement suppression strategies to address youth gang violence. And the third objective applies to both categories, which is to reduce and sustain reductions in community youth violence, particularly gun and gang violence and victimization. Here are a few key dates and times to keep in mind. At the top of the slide, you'll see the link to the NOFO, as well as the opportunity ID. The opportunity release date is April 15th, 2026. You'll be required to take a look at your SAM.gov registration or renewal, and we recommend that you begin this process immediately. The first deadline is the grants.gov deadline, which is 11:59 p.m. on May 21st, 2026. And then the second deadline is the Just Grants application deadline, which is 8:59 p.m. Eastern Time on June 1st, 2026. This NOFO has two categories, as mentioned, and here's a few details on the funding information. So for both categories, the plan is to fund up to 4 awards in each category, and each award would be up to $500,000. There's information on the specific opportunity numbers, and the period of performance start date would be June 1st, 2026, and the period of performance duration would be 36 months. With regards to eligibility, there's 2 different types of eligible applicants. On the left side, you'll see government entities, and on the right, you'll see other. Under government entities, you have state government, county government, city or township government, special district governments, and Native American tribal governments, which are federally recognized. So for this NOFO, state government entity means any state of the United States, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. On the other side, you have the other, which is other units of local government. And for the purposes of this NOFO, that means towns, boroughs, parishes, villages, or other general purpose political subdivisions of a state. A few additional applicant eligibility factors include the number of applications that can be submitted. So an applicant may submit 1 or more applications as long as they propose a different project in each. And you can also submit applications for both categories. In addition, applications under which 2 or more entities work together to carry out the federal award, only one entity may be the applicant for the NOFO. So only one application would be submitted as a part of a partnership, and any others would be listed as subrecipients. Okay, basic minimum requirements. This refers to those elements of an application that are required. That if any of these are not submitted, the application would be eliminated from the peer review process. So for this specific NOFO, you'll see that number 1, the application must be submitted by an eligible applicant. The requested amount does not exceed the award ceiling, which is $500,000. And the application includes the SF424, the narrative, program narrative, which is submitted in Just Grants and is responsive to the scope of the NOFO, a budget detail form, which includes the budget items, their calculations and explanations, and then a certification by the Chief Executive Officer. Here are some additional details on this mandatory certification by the Chief Executive Officer. So all state and local government applicants must submit the mandatory certification using the template in Appendix 1 in the NOFO. This certification is in the additional application component section under disclosures and assurances. Applications missing their certification will not proceed to peer review. So what is this certification? Ultimately, the applicant entity, including its officials and personnel, certify compliance with 8 USC subsections 1373 and 1644 in any program or activity receiving federal assistance under any award made by OJP pursuant to this application. The subrecipients must also comply with 8 USC subsections 1373 and 1644. With regards to what needs to be submitted, the proposal abstract, this is a helpful summary of the proposed project. If funded, this will be displayed publicly. So please keep that in mind as you're writing and make sure not to include any personally identified information or PII and avoid any acronyms. The abstract should be no more than 2,000 characters and must be completed in the Just Grants web-based form. It also must include the following information: the name of the applicant's proposed project, the purpose of the project, where the project will take place and who will be served by the project, what activities will ultimately be carried out to complete the project, list any subrecipients or partner organizations if known, and list the deliverables and expected outcomes. The next element is the proposal narrative. So the proposal narrative should be submitted as an attachment in Just Grants. It should be double-spaced using a standard 12-point font and have no less than 1-inch margins. It should also not exceed 30 pages. The pages should be numbered and submitted as an attachment. If the proposal narrative fails to comply with these length restrictions, OJJDP may consider such non-compliance in peer review and in final award decision. Now, if the applicant seeks priority consideration, the proposal narrative must state which priority goal the applicant's project will advance and describe how. And we'll talk a little bit more about these priority considerations in a bit. The proposal narrative has 4 elements. The first is a description of the need. Second, project goals and objectives. The next is project design and implementation. And finally, capabilities and competencies. So let's start with the description of the need. In this part of the project narrative, you want to talk about what critical issue or problem is the applicant proposing to address with this project. So ultimately, we're talking about youth gang violence, youth gang prevention for this particular NOFO. The section should include a brief explanation of the need, the gap or the issue to be addressed, any supporting information or data or evidence to demonstrate that this need exists, along with the size and the impact on the community, and then how the need relates to the purpose of the NOFO. Second part is the project goals and objectives. So here you want to talk about how the proposed project will address the need identified and address the purpose of the NOFO. It should include goals, objectives, and note how these goals and objectives relate to the goals and objectives of the NOFO. The project design and implementation section is an opportunity for the applicant to talk about the project activities that will meet the goals and objectives. So here you're going to want to describe what activities the applicant will conduct to achieve the proposed goals and objectives, how the applicant will deliver or complete those activities, when the activities will take place, and who is the applicant organization, how they will staff the activities, who will then participate in and benefit from the activity, what deliverables, reports, and other items will be produced, and then discuss any plans that you may have to use subrecipients to help conduct the project. The capabilities and competencies section is an opportunity to talk about what administrative and technical capacity and expertise the applicant brings to successfully complete this project. This section should include a short description of the applicant's capacity to deliver the proposed project and meet the requirements of the award, including collecting and reporting the required performance measurement data. This is an opportunity also to describe projects or activities that the applicant organization has conducted in the past or is currently conducting that demonstrate the applicant's ability to undertake the proposed project activities. And finally, a summary of relevant experience of the team members with key responsibilities for implementing the proposed project. The budget and associated documentation. The applicant will complete the Just Grants budget detail form. This form collects individual costs under each cost category needed to implement the proposed project. Applicants should ensure that the name and description of each cost is clear and provide the detailed calculation for the total cost. Applicants should also enter any additional narrative to fully describe the cost calculations and objectives, including describing any connections to OJP's priority goals. So let's talk a little bit about agency funding priorities. So in order to advance public safety and help meet its mission, OJP will provide priority consideration to applicants that propose projects designed to advance the goals below. These include directly supporting law enforcement operations, including immigration law enforcement operations, combating violent crime, supporting services to American citizens, protecting American children, supporting American victims of trafficking and sexual assault, and state and local law enforcement efforts that are coordinated with federal law enforcement efforts, including immigration and law enforcement efforts. So let's talk a little bit more about priority F. To receive consideration for this priority, at a minimum, applicants must demonstrate compliance with 8 U.S.C. subsection 1373, which provides that state and local government entities may not prohibit or in any way restrict any government entity or official from sending to, receiving from, maintaining, or exchanging information regarding citizenship or immigration status, lawful or unlawful, of any individual with components of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security or any other federal, state, or local government entity. And 2, must have in place a statute, ordinance, rule, regulation, policy, or practice that is designed to ensure both that agencies of the United States acting under color of federal law, in fact, are given access to any pertinent correctional facility for the purpose of permitting such agents to meet with individuals who are or are believed by such agents to be aliens and to inquire as to such individuals' rights to be in or remain in the United States. And that when any such facility receives from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security a formal written request authorized by the Immigration and Nationality Act that seeks advance notice of the scheduled release date and time for a particular alien in such facility, then such facility, in fact, will honor such requests and as early as practicable, provide the requested notice to such department. For this particular NOFO, there is an additional priority, which is coordination with Project Safe Neighborhoods. Project Safe Neighborhoods is focused on reducing violent crime. These coordinated initiatives are coordinated in each district by the respective U.S. Attorney's Office to enhance collaboration and strengthen commitment to reducing violent crime. PSN is also a critical component of the Department of Justice's Operation Take Back America. Applicants are encouraged to demonstrate a willingness to engage with their respective U.S. Attorney's Office, where violent crime reduction is a priority, for the purpose of potential collaboration. Applicants that can demonstrate how the U.S. Attorney's Office has been engaged and the role it will play in the event that funding is awarded will receive priority consideration. Now, please note that addressing this priority or any of the other priority areas is only one of many factors that OJP considers in making funding decisions. Receiving priority consideration does not guarantee a funding award. Here are a few unallowable use of funds as a part of this NOFO. So the following activities are out of the program scope and will not be funded. The first is any program or activity at any tier that directly or indirectly violates or promotes or facilitates the violation of federal immigration law, including 8 U.S.C. subsection 1373, or impedes or hinders the enforcement of federal immigration law, including by failing to comply with 8 U.S.C. subsection 1373, give access to DHS agents, or honor DHS requests and provide requested notice to DHS agents. Secondly, another area that's out of program scope is any program or activity at any tier that violates any applicable federal civil rights or non-discrimination law. This includes violations that indirectly violate the law, including by promoting or facilitating violations, or unlawfully favor individuals in any race or protected group, including on a majority or minority or privileged or unprivileged basis within a given area, population, or sector. And finally, any obligation of funds at any tier under this award to provide or to support the provision of legal services to any removable alien or any alien otherwise unlawfully present in the United States shall be unallowable for purposes of any award made under this notice. But the foregoing shall not be understood to apply to legal services to obtain protection orders for victims of crime, or to immigration-related legal services that may be expressly authorized or required by any law or any judicial ruling governing or applicable to the award. A few additional application components are the curriculum vitae or resumes of personnel funded to support this project, the position descriptions for these personnel, an organizational chart of the applicant organization, a tribal authorizing resolution if applicable, a logic model that lays out the outputs and outcomes of the project, and a timeline to implement and complete your project. So let's talk about the OJP funding process. Before you apply, your entity must register with sam.gov and obtain a unique entity identifier, and you must maintain an active sam.gov registration status at all times. For entities new to sam.gov, the registration process can take time. So start early, at any point during the year, to be sure that your status reaches active before you need to submit a funding application. Renew your registration in sam.gov every 12 months. Even if you've applied for a federal grant before, you need to check that your registration is current. Applicants who do not have an active sam.gov status will not be able to complete step 1 of the application process in grants.gov. Also, be sure that your organization's point of contact in sam.gov, especially the electronic business point of contact or eBiz POC, are current. The eBiz POC may receive notices about time-sensitive actions they need to take during the application process. So, applications are submitted to DOJ electronically through a 2-step process, and you'll be required to register and add users in 2 different systems. For step 1, you'll submit the application for federal assistance, or SF424, in grants.gov. For step 2, you'll complete the full application in Just Grants, which is DOJ's grants management system. Note that we recommend completing each step at least 48 hours before the deadline, not waiting until the deadline to submit materials. That's to ensure that you have time to address unexpected errors and make corrections if needed. And as a reminder, the grants.gov deadline is earlier than the Just Grants deadline. Okay, a few important points about grants.gov. Be sure that everyone you plan to have work on your funding application can access and take actions in grants.gov. Do this in advance of the application to be sure you're ready to submit when the time comes. Grants.gov will only allow entities with an active sam.gov registration status to submit an application for federal assistance. So check to be sure your registration is not expiring soon. Now, one common question about the SF424 is, do I need a firm budget amount to submit this form? And the answer is no. You can provide an estimate on this form and then update your funding request in Just Grants. Once submitted, the SF424 helps to pre-populate standard information in your Just Grants application. One other note about the SF424 is that the individual listed in Section 8F of this form is automatically identified as the application submitter in Just Grants. So be sure that person is checking their email and is prepared to complete the application in Just Grants during step 2. If this is your entity's first DOJ application, your sam.gov eBiz point of contact will also need to monitor their email and prepare to take action to onboard your entity into Just Grants as you move on to step 2. You can find more information about the SF424 in the links provided in the NOFO. Finally, DOJ made one change to the grants.gov step this year, where we're no longer requiring every applicant to submit an SF-LLL form in grants.gov. Instead, applicants will be asked about their lobbying activities in the Just Grants application. So your Just Grants application will align with the requirements described in the NOFO. Generally, applications contain most of these sections. The standard application information in Just Grants is pre-populated with data from your SF424. So you'll need to review and make edits as needed to the information in Just Grants. You do not need to go back and make changes to your SF424 in grants.gov. Just be sure that the information in the Just Grants application is accurate and complete. We talked about the details around the proposal abstract, which is a brief summary of the project and is publicly available. So remember not to include any personally identifiable information or acronyms. The proposal narrative includes key areas that describe your project. The budget and associated documentation is critical to make sure that you've outlined your costs and that they should be reasonable and necessary for the proposed project. And since allowable costs will vary by DOJ program, you should look into the NOFO for more details on allowable and unallowable costs. With regards to memorandum of understanding, this is an opportunity that if you're going to propose your project with a partner, that you'll want to have in place an MOU that basically reflects the partnership and the commitment of each organization to implementing the program. There are also additional application components and disclosures and assurances that you'll need to address as part of the application. So after the Just Grants deadline has passed, OJP will thoroughly review all applications. This process typically takes several months. First, we check to confirm that the application contains the basic minimum requirements that were described in the funding opportunity. For applications that miss these requirements, you will receive notice that your application has been eliminated from further review. For competitive opportunities, peer reviewers who are subject matter experts assess the technical merits of an application. Following peer review, OJP staff then assess applications based on factors such as geographic diversity, past performance, and whether applications are likely to meet the funding opportunity goals and objectives. We then evaluate the fiscal integrity of the applicant, examine the proposed costs, and determine whether the budget and budget narrative accurately explain the project's costs and whether those costs are allowable and reasonable. Finally, OJP reviews potential risks presented by applicants prior to making an award. This pre-award risk assessment takes into account a variety of factors, including an applicant's financial capability and past performance. During the review process, OJP may contact you to clarify program or budget details. Now, while applicants are often eager to learn how their application is progressing through the review process, unfortunately, DOJ staff, including user support and the OJP Response Center, cannot share any information with you until final awards have been made public. Here's some information regarding award notices. You can visit OJP's Grant Awards website with the link here to see all OJP awards made by year, program, and even locality. This site is updated as awards are made. Now, if your application is selected, specific Just Grants users for your organization will be notified by email of an award, and they will also see the award in their Just Grants accounts. If you receive notice of an award, you must take specific steps in Just Grants to accept or decline it. This must take place within 45 days of receiving that notice. The DOJ Award Acceptance Checklist on the Just Grants Resources website can also walk you through these steps. So here are a few additional application resources. First, the OJP Grant Application Resource Guide, which can be found at this link, has tons of information for you as an applicant to help answer any questions, frequently asked questions that may come up. The Just Grants Service Desk is also available to respond to questions about the system and to access any trainings that you may need to navigate the system. Here you'll see the email address and the phone number. We also have the OJP Response Center, which can answer substantive questions on this NOFO as you're developing your application, and they may be directed to this phone number and this email address. And then for grants.gov, there's also a customer support hotline, website, and email address that you can access. And grants.gov, the support hotline operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except on federal holidays. Finally, as a disclaimer, OJJDP has made every attempt to ensure that materials presented during this recording is accurate. However, in cases of errors, conflicts, or omissions, the information and requirements contained within the posted written NOFO shall take precedence. Thank you very much for participating in this information session today.